I'm not using Resident Evil now, I'm using Bayonetta for my gameplay footage because what we're talking about is Sony dropping Western slop and focusing on Japanese experience, or in this case, local market. If you read the title of this video, Sony PlayStation. Now I know there is Sony America, but look, Sony PlayStation, it was originally Japan, okay? They're now going back.
Over the years, companies like Sony have abandoned their home market. They are more worried about chasing global audiences and making as much money as possible, even though that's not really working out the best for them. But now we're hearing that apparently Sony is preparing to take on Nintendo in Japan again.
Regardless of what you want to say, Sony PlayStation is originally from Japan, okay? Right? See this? I choose specifically this because, of course, the person who made it is from Japan. See that? Japanese. Hideki Kamiya. Okay, I know it may be irrelevant, but sometimes if you have your internet disconnected for no good reason, best thing you can do if you want to record reaction video or anything, make sure you react. In this case, you record the full footage on your second laptop that still has an internet connection and then move it. So apologies if there's this one, I can't do anything about it. So let's continue forward.
Just a little while ago, back at the beginning of October, we heard a rumor circulating that apparently Sony would ditch Western studios and they would shift back to Japanese developers and traditional stories. They were sick and tired of games coming out for a modern audience, a Western audience. Really what it boils down to is a global audience, and they wanted to refocus their efforts. If Ghost of Yote didn't do amazing, if Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet didn't do amazing, and really all of these female-centric Western products were not delivering on their expectations, they were going to take a step back and rethink their efforts going forward.
Again, first off, kudos. Look, yes, you could say that, yes, Square Enix was the one that be the first Japanese company to relocate. And now, next up, Sony PlayStation. And now we had to convince not just Sony PlayStation, we had to convince also Capcom. Oh. Oh. Ade. So I have to say this. It's good they're going back. We need to have more of these Japanese companies and Asian companies to go back to their roots. Oh. Go back to your roots, comrades. It's the reason why many people love Japanese games. Ouch.
A source close to Sony tells that Heart Place that internal discussions in Japan suggest a major strategic reset could be coming for PlayStation's exclusive lineup. According to their source, both Yote from Sucker Punch and Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet from Naughty Dog are being viewed as last chances for Western developers to land major exclusives under the Sony company's current direction. Their source claimed another rumor they were also hearing is that Naughty Dog's Intergalactic and Yote are the last chance for these Western developers. If they fail, after that Sony is going full focus on Japanese developers and instead going back to traditional stories and characters. They're citing China winning on the gaming market with Genshin Impact, Wukong, and Wuthering Waves as a reason to change. And now you also have to add Where Winds Meet to that. It is a game that is doing extremely good right now. A lot of people are spending a bit of money in it, and it just in general is a pretty high quality product. It's really fun, and a lot of Chinese games over the years have come out and done really well. And as I always say, I'm willing to play games from any sort of person, from any sort of studio. But at the same time, I personally have kind of been abandoning that mindset when it's come to Western games because so many of them are just so bad. Eastern developers are doing so much better right now, whether we're talking about South Korean developers, Chinese developers, yes, Japanese developers, when these companies are not hyper focused on the big, broad market, and that is a major issue that we've seen.
It's why I will always say they should, in fact, focus on their local market instead of the international, okay? If you focus on the local market, guess what happens? People in the international market, they will support your game either way. That's right. Oh. Oh. Hello, allez. Remember. Remember, to all Eastern developers, keep making games for the local market. If you keep on doing that, the international market will follow suit. Yes. Oh. Allez. See this? This game was once Japanese and it still resonates today. Well, mostly, I don't know. Come on. Yeah. See that? Oh, good move. Ow.
Company strategies. I understand that companies ultimately need to make money, but they also need to make products that appeal to their customers because you can make a game for everyone, but that typically means that it's not really made for anyone. If you have every type of piece of content in a game, there's not a dedicated group that's going to play it. And sure, maybe initially you make a little bit more in sales or you make a little bit more in microtransactions, but you're not going to keep people around in the long term. And we know that these companies are very focused on appealing to a global audience. And when that happens, it means censorship, it means sanitization, and really it means that we're not getting products that are special anymore. There's a reason why Japan got so popular so quickly in terms of entertainment, whether that's anime, manga, or video games. And when these Japanese developers start focusing more on the Western audiences and they start focusing, I don't know, AAA Western companies, they just are making more of the same, so they're no longer special. And I've always said this, I want companies to do good. I would love if tomorrow I woke up and the industry was fixed and every single game releasing one was a 10 out of 10, but it's clearly not going to happen.
I think the problem is these Japanese developers, initially they thought they got everything. In my opinion, I believe they listened to the wrong people. Because I think by that time when Japan wanted to expand their market, they must have listened to journalists, okay? Yes, they might. Yes, they must have learned to listen to journalists. Because when you listen to journalists, some people, which I don't think these Japanese creators or designers know about the activists, yeah, these Japanese creators, they have no other choice. They have to listen to journalists, which, no? So I think, but it's a good thing that they now have Twitter, which they should. Oh. That is good. Now if we can at least convince both Capcom and Bandai Namco. But first things first, let's Paradox finish.
companies, I think, are realizing that if they don't change now, they are going to irreparably damage their image. Now, we are hearing another report saying that Sony is preparing to take on Nintendo in Japan, which is fascinating because, of course, Sony is one of the largest companies in the video game industry, and they have held ground before in Japan, but at the same time, over the past, decades, Sony had moved their headquarters to California. They really left the market open in Japan for Nintendo, and I think that with how weak their first-party lineup is now, this would also be hard. If you take one look at Nintendo games, you realize you can't get them anywhere else except for on Nintendo consoles and platforms, whereas Sony, if you wait a little while, whether that's a year or 2 years, they eventually always come to PC. You don't need a PlayStation, and even then, typically they don't do amazing. So previous PlayStation leadership wasn't worried about losing ground in Japan to Nintendo. However, the new Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Hideki Nishino feels the opposite and now sees it as a priority. And this is truly the best case scenario for Sony, that they focus on their home market again. They start making products with the mindset of Japan first. They try to gain this ground, and then we're seeing potentially great effects on the industry. Nintendo no longer feels emboldened to do whatever they want. We see Sony upping their level of quality, Sony focusing less on making westernized slop. I mean, really, this could be a massive win if this turns out to be successful, and a lot of people are talking about how this could end up being good. Now, it is hard to trust companies. They might have plans and then they're not executed properly. They might just be testing the waters, releasing statements, but either way, a lot of people are saying maybe this could be good.
I think the one thing that is a little bit problematic is, of course, Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet, because, of course, Neil Druckmann. Yeah, Neil Druckmann's not gonna say anything on this case. I don't know, folks. I think as long as Neil Druckmann is in the helm of Naughty Dog, the chances of Sony going back to Japan if Intergalactic fails is high. Okay. Seriously, Sony Japan, or in this case Sony PlayStation, which is originally in Japan, they should be moving out. Yes. Sony Japan. Allez.
That the Switch 2 is getting AAA games day one now, and PlayStation is not the default console to play these games anymore, is probably a big reason why. And I do agree, but at the same time, most people are not getting these AAA games on the Switch 2. Look at the Cyberpunks. Those are selling abysmally. If you look at, I don't know, the next Call of Duties that are allegedly supposed to be on the Switches, that's not going to work out. Like, who's going to buy Call of Duty on the Switch 2 when the Switch 2 can barely even run games that are designed specifically for this? Games like Borderlands 4, they have to be delayed several months out because the Switch 2 version had an issue. Like, these are big hurdles that they now face. Glad we got some new management. Now let's get some games rolling. This is what I would do. More exclusive. Handheld PS6, less focus on the PC, multiplayer games. AA games and cheaper games, teams like Team Asobi are the key. Combine all of this and boom, and I do agree, a lot of this does sound really good. LOL, for how many years I thought they abandoned Japan. Apparently they're turning things around.
Well,
I agree with him. PlayStation still thinks it's in the race with Nintendo, and I do think that they can never completely wipe out Nintendo, obviously, but they could gain a little bit more leeway in this market. Good luck, man. You're better off just doing your own thing and not trying to compete. But then again, competition can inspire people. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Bring back Japan studios. I would absolutely love this. if there was ever hope for Sony to announce a Bloodborne 2, now may be that time. They just need to release good exclusives. I don't think they even have one game that is at the level of Nintendo's best, and I don't necessarily agree with that, but Nintendo does have a very specific type of product that they consistently release, which is why they have such a dedicated fan base at this point, and Nintendo is doing good. I don't think that Nintendo could ever be knocked from the position that they are in, but at the same time, Sony does have a lot of money at their disposal, and Sony could, in theory, do some damage to Nintendo, so I'll definitely be following this pretty closely, but it is very nice to hear the new PlayStation leadership saying they feel the opposite about abandoning Japan, and they want to turn things around in what once was their home market.
First off, good video. Again, like I said, I apologize for any background music. Sometimes you have to pick the right game that when you pause, everything pauses. Not all the time. First off, good video for Bayonetta. I would say this. Give me a minute. What the heck? Sorry, nothing. Okay, here's the thing. When it comes to this, you have to understand both Sony Japan. Sony PlayStation is originally from Japan. Let's be clear on that one, okay? Yes, they have their Western studios, but at the same time, their Western studio is producing slop, okay? And for Intergalactic, the one problem with that one is Neil Druckmann. As long as Neil Druckmann is still there, yeah, it's not gonna do well. Again, like I said, the chances of Intergalactic failed and Sony Japan leaving to what? Returning back to Japan is high, okay? Okay. I'm glad that both Square Enix and now Sony PlayStation is now going back to their roots. It's good to see. I mean, after this, we have to convince both Capcom and what? PlayStation. No, not Capcom and Bandai Namco. So, many of these companies, yes, they're Japanese originally and they have Western studios, but at the same time, those Western studios are producing slop. For Bandai Namco, remember Unknown 9 Awakening? Yes, I remember it. I remember it. So it's good to see it. So, but still, again, like I said, for Intergalactic, the only way Intergalactic will be successful is if Neil Druckmann and Tati Gabrielle keep their mouth shut. No, generally. Because sometimes if Neil Druckmann still, or in this case, if assuming he doesn't attack the audience by false copyright strike people for what? Criticisms? Yeah. His move, well, he'll be failing. Remember, they say that Intergalactic and Ghost of Yotei were the last shot, okay? Both of them failed, then it's done. They're going back to Japan. Because right now, Ghost of Yotei failed. No. Don't you dare say it's a good thing. Don't use Circana numbers, okay? Oh, no. I'm not buying that. It's a flop, okay? Let's not hide it, regardless of what you say. And I'm 100% certain the PC port isn't going to save Ghost of Yotei either, alright? For Intergalactic, okay, for Ghost of Yotei, I think at this point, they're trying to speed up the PC port, which I'm 100% certain the PC port is currently in development. For Intergalactic, as long as Neil Druckmann or Neil Cuckman and Tati Gabrielle keep their mouth shut and doesn't attack the fans, aka the gamers, the chuds like they want to say, it'll be good. But if they do, and the game Intergalactic the Heretic Prophet failed, then they're done, okay? To all Eastern developers, focus on your local market first and then the international market. And most importantly, if you want to use translation, okay? If you have to use AI, just use AI. Don't use localization, okay? Localization doesn't help at all. So it's gonna be a cutscene, so enjoy.
Rodan should be paying me for even touching these toys.
You have any idea how much this is gonna cost to fix? How the fuck do I always get wrapped up in this shit?
Engine still purrs nicely. Now, about this little thing you've been looking into for me, Enzo. Let's have a quick chat.
See? This is why I told you I was going home. I just got held up in the air by some invisible things, and you want an intelligence briefing? It never stops with you!
You keep bellyaching like that, and you're liable to wake Eggman from the dead. And I don't think either of you would like that.
Ah!
Catch you later, Bayonetta. Something tells me you're gonna need a rush on our special project before this shit hits the fan.
Wait, Rodan. What about Eggman?
Such a popular chap. I bet they hate him down there as much as you did when he was up here. We just need to make sure he won't come crawling back when they kick him out.